Hey, good morning, class, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, November 30th. I hope you're all having a great day. Today, as you can see behind me, I have some Union soldiers because once again, we'll be continuing our discussion of the Civil War. Now, you may have noticed that there are 3D glasses in front of you. Please do not touch them yet. Leave them on your desk. I will instruct you. We will be using those today. So today we will be looking at, we will be looking at a PowerPoint on the Civil War, more specifically, the Civil War in 3D. So first, we have to cover, obviously, our objectives, our lesson objectives. I'm going to move myself up here out of the way for you. Okay, the Civil War in 3D. So first, our objective. After reviewing information on the Civil War and viewing photos related to the Civil War, the student will be able to describe the historical context of Civil War photos with 80% accuracy. So, as you know, this whole week we've been learning about Civil War. We're going to cover some more today. After today's lesson, what this means is you should be able to look at historical photos from the Civil War and you should be able to describe the context. That means like what is going on in the photo, what is happening, why is it happening, things like that. So before we get into our use of our 3D glasses, first we must go over, if you do not want to look at 3D, this would be my differentiation right here. If students had some issue, if looking through the red and blue 3D glasses gave them headaches, or if they had issues or they just couldn't focus while using 3D glasses, I do have a printout of the PowerPoint presentation. It has all the pictures that we'll be going over, except these are the not 3D version. So if students want to use that, they're more than welcome to request one. I'll have some printed out for them. So now I want everyone to take off the plastic from your 3D glasses, and I want you to put them on. We're going to start looking at 3D photos. So the Civil War was obviously a time of a great rise in technology. The Civil War was the first war in which photos were taken at a war. So we're going to start with just some 3D pictures. This is a spaceship. Very nice to look at. You can see how the spaceship comes forward ahead of the background. Very interesting. Next, we have a bird. The water is far behind the bird with the 3D, the red and the blue. It messes with your eyes, and you see the bird way closer than the water. And the next one is a picture of you as I see you. This is how you all look with your 3D glasses. Just sitting here staring at me. This is me pointing at you. Okay, so now we're getting to the Civil War. So, like we said, the Civil War, cameras were being used. We're going to implement our advanced technology by looking at these Civil War photos, but these ones are obviously going to be in 3D with our red and blue glasses. So the Civil War, the first picture right here is just a picture of a cannon. Obviously, cannons were a weapon that was used in the Civil War. Both North and South had cannons. You always see a bunch of Civil War movies where there's a bunch of cannons going back and forth, cannonballs exploding everywhere. So our next slide is breakfast at a Union camp. So the Union obviously was trying to go down and bring the South back. Now to do that, they had to go obviously down south. So this picture right here is obviously a picture of, it could be Union soldiers or Union generals. The guy on the left looks a little bit like maybe an officer or something. So these guys were just having breakfast. They could be fighting a battle later that day. Some of these guys may not be coming back to camp. An interesting thing is in the background, you see an African-American person, probably a newly freed slave, since this is a Union camp. He may be working to help the Union. He may be a soldier himself. It might look like he's wearing soldier uniform. But notice how he's not sitting with the white men. This is since even though they were freed, African Americans still were not seen as completely equal. So it's not entirely common that he would be sitting down eating with them. So that's why you see him standing in the back kind of straight-faced. I mean, they're all kind of straight-faced, but African American is definitely not part of the white group. But you see the camps that the soldiers had to live in. It wasn't nice living. They were out there. They were out there in the South just trying to get the job done. Most of them just wanted to come back home. So yeah, this is soldiers at a Union camp. Next, we have rifles in Petersburg. This is just showing the weapons that soldiers would be using in battle. all lined up 3D, so the rifles come out at you. If you look with your 3D glasses, you could very clearly see the effect that the 3D glasses have. The rifles are coming down the road towards you. You see that they had all the rifles had muskets on the end, and soldiers would have to charge, like in the movie Glory, where the soldiers get close to each other, the lines shoot, and then they charge. That was very common. Next, we have Fort Sumter. As we've learned, Fort Sumter in South Carolina was the place where the Civil War began. The Confederacy decided to strike first and take Fort Sumter. This is a picture of the walls of Fort Sumter. There's a cannon ready to defend. This was where a battle took place. I don't see any damage to this side of the wall, so it looks like maybe it wasn't as affected. So yeah, Fort Sumter, that's where the war began. That's important to know. Next, we have the deck of the USS Monitor. So of course, during this time, another change of technology was that some of the ships that were being used by both sides, they had now ironclad ships, which was the belief that if you covered the ship in certain parts of it in metal, it would be more defense, and it would just be better for warfare. So you see that this ship has a turret. There's men standing on the deck. The men standing on the deck gives you good indication of how big these ships were, even for this time, the 1860s. I mean, these cannons have to be able to shoot very far to hit another ship near them. You can also see some soldiers standing up top. This is the deck, and that is a turret. So that was part of the warfare. Is the Union tried to block off the South's trade routes. They had to blockade the South, and this could have been one of the ships that was down there doing it. This ship could have sunk a Confederate ship. Next, we have the ruins of the Richmond train depot. So we talked about Sherman and Sherman's march. Contrary to McClellan, who we learned about, McClellan was the first general in the Civil War. He wanted to kind of leave civilians out of it. He didn't want to make it. He wanted to make the war clean, but as Sherman believed, and as we found out, wars aren't clean. They're nitty gritty. And Sherman took the opposite approach. He thought that if they struck at the heart of the South, which was its civilians, at its infrastructure, the South would not be able to mobilize a defense. It wouldn't be able to, get supplies across. It wouldn't be able to transport troops. And Sherman's tactic ended up being pretty successful. He marched down south, and along his way, he burnt down houses. He dismantled railroad tracks. Finding a train depot would definitely be a place where Sherman would stop and his troops would lay waste to it. Anything that could stop the Southerners from fighting back against the North, anything that would help the North gain an advantage. So this is a picture of that, Sherman's march. Sherman was so successful that after the Civil War, the South would still be shattered. It would take a very, very long time to get everything cleaned up. So, yeah, just a lot of devastation from Sherman. And of course, we have Union soldiers burying the dead. Now, I don't know where this is or after which battle this was, but after every battle, you have casualties, obviously. And this is just the nature of war. Brothers were fighting brothers. It was the United States against the United States. This is why this war has the highest casualty of American soldiers, because it was America versus America. The South was trying to secede, but the North had to bring them in. That's the reality of it. And people died. It was tough. So those are just a few examples of the Civil War. You should be able to look at parts of the Civil War. You should be able to look at photos. You should be able to analyze them. And you should be able to, describe what's going on in the photos. So if you look at our examples, which we just used, those were them. So next we have a worksheet, once again focusing on the soldiers, the warfare aspect. This will be uploaded to our Google Classroom. It's called Billy Yank and Johnny Reb, Ordinary Soldiers in the Civil War. So Billy Yank and Johnny Reb. Billy Yank was just a stereotypical name given to the Yankees, which were the North. They just called him Billy Yank. The Southerners called him that. And then the stereotypical name for The South would be Johnny Rebel, because they are rebelling. So this worksheet focuses on the regular soldiers, what they had to go through, the people, not the generals, the fancy generals who had the battle plans and led the soldiers and made the decisions, but the soldiers who actually had to go forth. They had to go, they had to fight the battles, they had to do what had to be done. They were just trying to survive. So you have two sources. So we're going to be using our computers. We are going to, the websites are listed on this article, which is once again uploaded to your Google Classroom. This the first source focuses on the Union soldiers, and the second source focuses on the Confederate soldiers. In the sources, you will have the information to the questions. The questions ask specifically about the source, so I want you guys to get into groups of 2, or you can work on it alone. It's up to you guys. But I want you to get into groups, and I want you to go through this, and I want you to answer these questions. There's only 7 of them, so this shouldn't take you super long, maybe about 20 minutes. And then this will be your exit ticket out the door. Once this is done, you guys are free to pack up, do anything you need to do. And yeah, so get to working. I will be walking around. I will be helping. Please fold the 3D glasses up and put them back in the plastic. These cost me 25 cents each. So please don't make me waste another quarter. Put them back in the wrapper. I'll come around and pick them up, and I want you guys to begin working. So yeah, at this point, I would let them work on the worksheet. The worksheet is very self-explanatory. I went on, I filled it out myself. It's easy. The source is from a nice social studies website just called socialstudies.com. And students would be able to work in groups of 2 or by themselves. And I would go around, I would help them as needed. Little temperature checks, like how you guys doing, things like that. For differentiation, if there's identified struggling students, they would be given they would not have the worksheet due at the end of the class period. They would be able to turn it in at the next class period tomorrow, or wherever they got it done. If they needed to go outside of the room to a quieter working environment, since we'll be working in groups, the volume in the room might raise a little bit. They'll be able to do that. Once again, another differentiation would be that for the PowerPoint, I have the slides, the pictures, but not the 3D versions. So that is another differentiation. And essentially, they would be working for this on 20 minutes, and that would be like a good class period. So yes. And yeah, I think that's all. I think that's it. Let me go right here. That would be 35 minutes of class. So thank you. Appreciate you watching me.